Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Christina Miller, and I am the Materials Management Planning Specialist in the state, and you are at the MMP Workgroup meeting for today with a topic area of notice of intent and first steps. As you may notice, as you've come in, you are automatically muted and your cameras are off. If you can, please make sure that it stays off. I don't think you have the option to turn them on at this point. But anyways, if you could please enter your name, title, and representation in the chat, especially if you're new to the group, so that we know that you're here. This meeting was open to the public. Folks just had to click on the link and to join, so they may or may not be part of the work group. Which is what we're trying to do is get the word out as much as we can. So we're okay with that. So hopefully folks have shared this meeting notice far and wide to get as many people here that need to be. Anyways, again, please identify your name, title, and representation in the chat. If you're new, the meeting will be or is being recorded and will be available on our website when we're done. And you can use the chat feature to identify questions for the group, and as we it's our time again, or after we're done presenting, we will give a plenty amount of time to answer questions to folks. So anyways, without further ado, I'm gonna, hopefully my team can help keep admitting folks to the meeting, and we'll go from there. So yeah, so you are here at the MMP work group that we have scheduled the third Wednesday of every month. We've been meeting for over a year and a half now, with a few months off here and there. That said, our focus for this meeting today is specifically the notice of intent and first steps, and we anticipate we don't know everything at this point, but we are hoping that this meeting will be used for counties or whomever needs to understand how the process will work, that they'll come back and watch this video. So we are using it to help provide that education out as we go forward. Our agenda today, like I mentioned, is specifically notice of intent, the overview of what it is, the details of it, some of the first steps that are going to be required once the director initiates the process, and also to talk about some upcoming events and things that I feel like that folks should know about that's happening around the state. With that said, I appreciate your time being here. We have quite a few people, and as we've been presenting around the state for what we call our roadshow and the various groups that we've been presenting with, more and more people are understanding that this is coming, and that it's a pretty exciting time for the state of Michigan. So I'm excited that we continually get more folks joining us. With that said, just some quick important items to identify. The director will be initiating the planning process soon. The exact date is not yet set, but it is coming. We wanted to let folks know that we have a new question and answer document online. It's on our webpage. These are all clickable links, so you will be able to access these in the PDF version that you'll find online as well, and that will be emailed to the work group members afterwards. We still have our planning quick guide, which is a reference guide with a number of topics. We highly recommend folks to find that on our website as well. Read through the various items, and it's clickable, so you should be able to click on the table of contents, jump right to where you're looking for to get the information. A lot of good information there. We do have a separate materials management plan approval process and a flow chart that you'll see here in a minute available online. And then we also have been meeting around the state with the Michigan Recycling Coalition. They have regional meetings, and they've allowed us and invited us to participate in those meetings to talk about planning. There are a number of meetings still available. If you are interested in joining those meetings, click on the link or go to our webpage, find the link there, and you can join. We have a meeting tomorrow sorry, and then Friday up in the UP, and those are virtual as well, so you can attend those. But there's links to the actual recording and slides as well that are available on our website. So to get started today, it's important to have a general understanding of the definitions that we're talking about today, or the terms that we're using. Sorry, every time I try to admit somebody, my thing pops away. So can someone else please monitor the people being admitted? So anyways, MMP is our new materials management plan. For those of you who have heard that term, great, but it is going to replace your solid waste management plan that is currently in effect and has been in existence for a number of years. So MMP means materials management plan, and that's what we're here to talk about. A planning area is a county or counties that are preparing one plan together. And the focus of the law has really shifted towards a regional approach, and with incentives with that as well. So a planning area will become more readily present in our state, because I believe there are quite a few counties out there right now talking about doing multi-county planning, which is exciting for us. CAA is a county approval agency, and this is now going to be the primary responsible party for planning. Historically, it was always the Board of Commissioners. Now it is going to be this county approval agency, or CAA. And that's important because we're going to figure out or identify how they become that entity, and then the steps that are required of them in this meeting today. The DPA, again, is your designated planning agency, and its contact. It is the person who is going to help administer and prepare the plan, and then after the plan is developed, be the resource at the county or planning area level, so that people, businesses, residents, folks can contact them to figure out or know what's in the plan for materials management as a whole. And the planning committee is MMPC. It's obviously has been changed to meet the new law, because it's now materials management planning instead of solid waste management. Not going to get into specifics of those. We have had presentations in the past, and those are available. But generally, those are the terms that folks need to know. So in general, just a quick overview. The new law is in effect. It was in effect in March. It is EGLE that will initiate the process for these new materials management plans. It's the director. Every county in the state of Michigan they will be replacing all solid waste management plans going forward. So every county in the state of Michigan will have a materials management plan. There are timelines established in the law for action. So there are places where if no action is taken, it moves directly to the next step. And if no action is taken, we may take over writing the plan for the county. However, we do not want that. We want the counties or the regions or somebody else to write the plan for them. But there are timelines established in the law, which are very important to understand. And with one of the timelines to bring up right away is that there will be a 6-month time frame for our notice of intent to be submitted for each county once we initiate the process. So that's very important. And you cannot submit your notice of intent to prepare the plan until a set of activities are accomplished, which we're going to talk through about today. And just in general, folks, that your plan is the tool that connects all the management activities, programs, facilities to manage the materials that you're generating in your county, your solid waste, your recyclables, your organics, your diverted waste, your materials that are being generated. Your plan is the tool that connects all those pieces, whether a facility can be developed, what mechanisms that are going to be used to accomplish a set of goals, and maybe provide funding for the planning area, and any and all those things. And so it is important to understand that it is the overall tool and the authority over these items. In the past, and historically, your solid waste management plan was the tool and the authority over solid waste. Now we have the tool and the authority over materials management, which brings in all these materials, all these facilities under regulation, which is important to understand, so that you know why you're filing that notice of intent. There is this plan. It is not the end all be all. It is the minimum standard that helps create the vision for the county and the planning area, sets goals, a way to achieve those goals, and to help meet our overall new goals for the statewide recycling rates and diversion activities that we are about to embark on. So that's a quick overview of what the plan is and why it's important. Getting into what the topic is for today. So this is that approval process I mentioned. This is online. This is a scary looking flow chart, but it's what things to take away from this flow chart is this, that there are red numbers peppered throughout this. Those red numbers are time frames that are established in the law to no longer allow a plan's approval and development process to stay stagnant or dormant in a spot. There in the previous law, there were parts of the approval process that it literally could sit there for years and years with no action and still meet the law. And that was definitely an issue that our stakeholder group that helped to develop the new law the way it is said we can't have that. We need to have a time frame and a default something would happen if no action, and this has to happen within a certain time frame. And so that's essentially what this flow chart is representing. There are the red numbers, like I mentioned, are the time frames at the various points of the approval process and development process. And the other item I want to mention is that and the red box at the bottom. And those things, once you file your notice of intent, it starts a time clock of a 36-month time frame to develop your plan and get it approved prior to it coming to Eagle for approval. So we're going to talk about what happens before that green box that I just mentioned. So Eagle will initiate the process, and the first entity that gets the option to become that county approval agency, that highest level authority, will be the Board of Commissioners or county executive at the county level. And if they do not, they have the option to decline to take on this responsibility. And if they decline, it can go to the municipalities working jointly or the regional planning agency, and they could take on the responsibilities for all aspects of the plan. That said, it historically has always been the Board of Commissioners that has had the highest level of authority, like I mentioned. Now going forward, it could be the Board of Commissioners if they decline, the municipalities or the regional planning agency. That said, one of those entities are going to have to take on the responsibilities as the county approval agencies first, because you don't officially become the CAA until you file your notice of intent. And so you'll have to complete a set of tasks, which we're going to talk about today, and then submit your notice of intent. And then that's when that CAA is officially established. And then they become the primary responsible party for all aspects of the plan. And we have broken up, based on the law, this notice of intent process into 2 steps. And we are anticipating that the first step that Amy will be walking through in a little bit, that every county in the state of Michigan will give us either an acceptance or a decline in preparing the plan right off the bat. And so we expect that everybody will tell us one way or the other, whether or not you're doing a multi-county or not, you become the CAA first. And so we should have 83 acceptance or declines in our first step. Now, once you accept these responsibilities to do this action, you will then have to do these set of tasks. which are do a multi-county planning consultation or communication. And then you have to, if you're developing a multi-county plan together, create an interlocal agreement, and then you submit that notice of intent. And again, once you submit that notice of intent, that is when that green box is triggered in that flow chart, and that's when that 36-month time frame starts. So getting down into the specifics of it, the law specifically says that you shall consult with the adjacent county regarding the option of preparing a multi-county plan pursuant to the Urban Cooperation Act. The link to this act is at the bottom of the page, and you are required to do that, to reach out to the adjacent counties. Now, there are various provisions depending on if you're above or below the 250,000 population. But essentially, both, whether you're above or below, you have to document these consultations and provide that information to us when you file your notice of intent. So this is an example of, in this particular example, we have Oscoda County. They are required to reach out specifically to all of the adjacent counties, which you can see in the picture, but you can also reach out to other counties if it makes sense, and that's what the second picture on the right is demonstrating, that it doesn't have to just be the adjacent counties that you reach out to, but you're required to reach out to them. The other thing that people are asking when we've been out and about on our roadshow is that, does it have to fall in the Michigan Associations of Regions region there? Can you overlap in regions as well? And the answer is yes. If it makes sense for you to develop your plan together, it makes sense. It's okay. Whether or not it is a county in the UP can be in a county, in the Lower Peninsula, it has to make sense for the development of the plan for a multi-county plan. But essentially, you're required to meet adjacent counties or consult with them, and you can go beyond that. The next thing is specific. What type of documentation will be needed to demonstrate this consult? Letters from each county. So in the case I showed you a second ago, Oscoda County will send a letter at minimum to all of the counties that I mentioned, and then you'll have to get the letter that comes back or a meeting votes or minutes with a vote to say, yes, we want to work together, or no, we don't. You're going to have some level of documentation showing the result of that question or that consultation, not just that you sent it out to people. So you'll have to provide that as part of your notice of intent submittal. And if you decide to do an interlocal or a multi-county plan, you're going to develop an interlocal agreement, and that is what's documenting the outcome of that consult. So again, you have to follow the Urban Cooperation Act in order to meet that. The one thing is specifically about the interlocal agreement, it's essentially, it doesn't have to be, everything has to be included in it on day one. It really just has to show that the counties intend to work together per that act, and that they understand that they have to develop the plan to meet the requirements of the law and have specific requirements to do that. It can be adjusted later. It doesn't have to be everything in it, like I mentioned. That said, in previous presentations with the work group, it was suggested to give other items that may be included in the interlocal agreement, whether it's on day one or later on. But these are similar or items that could be included in the interlocal agreement. Your bylaws, a process for approval of activities that have to meet the law, the planning committee appointments, procedures. Maybe there are some things that are unique situations in the counties that you want to address. A budget, things for how we're going to use the budget that's coming in, any mechanisms that might be needed to ensure that the development of the plan meets the law, and any implementation strategies. With that said, you don't have to have those. I would highly recommend that you reach out to your attorneys to draft something and make sure that everybody is on board with those things. And again, we are not approving the interlocal agreement. We are just need to make sure we have a copy of that interlocal agreement. So with that said, I am going to turn it over to Amy Karana, and she's going to walk through the surveys and resources that we have going forward. So I'll stop presenting. Did you take over? Yep.
Yes, I believe so. Let's see. I will share my camera for a minute while I get this situated. Hi all, my name is Amy Karana. I am one of the planning team, and I would like to apologize in advance for any background noise you might hear. I am getting a new roof installed today, so if there's any pounding in the background, then that is what's going on. So thanks for bearing with me. Like Christina said, I am going to walk through some more details of the actual notice of intent surveys, which you'll actually physically submit after this process is initiated, and then go through some details of other tools as well. So to get started, once the director initiates the call for plans, we will have the actual surveys and links to them on our webpage. So to get to that, we're going to make it super clear, super obvious to access it. If you just go to our michigan.gov/EagleMMP webpage, we'll have a big spotlight pretty much right on the main page there that takes you to the actual materials management plans information, and then we will have links to the actual physical surveys themselves. So before we get into the actual surveys, I would like to note that we have decided, well, we've made the determination that we will be doing this as a two-step process. This came about because essentially once the director initiates the call for plans, counties will have 180 days to file their notice of intent and make the determination of who's going to be their county approval agency, or CAA, as Christina explained earlier, basically who's taking responsibility for that plan. So we kind of came to the realization that the first option goes to the Board of Commissioner or county executive for each county. So the Board of Commissioners has the first option to become the CAA, take on this responsibility. However, if they decline, then that option goes to regional planning agencies or municipalities. And whoever, files a notice of intent first becomes that CAA. So we realized that for us, we needed to know earlier than that 180-day deadline if the Board of Commissioners was not going to take on that responsibility, just to make sure that the regional planning agencies and municipalities knew about it and knew that they would have the option to take on that CAA role. So what we've ended up doing is we're doing what we're calling a step one notice of intent. That will essentially go straight to the Board of Commissioners. Once the director calls for plans and sends out that letter, it will link them to the step one survey, which let me pull this up. And the step one survey basically just says, what is your county name? The Board of Commissioners chairperson's name, and if you're going to accept or decline the CAA responsibilities. So this is pretty much just a check-in with us. Let us know if you're accepting it or declining it. Basically, if you choose accept, it'll ask you for an electronic signature. I can go ahead and show that. And it will ask you if you have identified who your DPA is, and make sure that you understand what the CAA duties are. So if you choose accept, you'll just need to check these boxes that state, each of the CAA duties that you understand and you're willing to take those on. And then also check that you understand what the next steps are, which include multi-county or adjacent county consultation, and then developing an interlocal agreement if you decide to pursue a multi-county plan. And then also after this, after we know who's going to be the official CAA, they will submit to us the step two survey, which I will show in a minute. That's basically the official submission that includes that multi-county consultation documentation, as well as any interlocal agreements that are applicable. And then there's an electronic signature at the end. So this is if the Board of Commissioners was going to accept this responsibility and become the CAA. If they were to decline this responsibility, let's say, the letter goes out to Board of Commissioners, they don't want to be the CAA, for this round, they would choose that they are declining this. And then it's pretty similar. It just makes, them check the box that they're understanding that they are losing the approval rights, and that they are required to notify both municipalities within their county and the regional planning agency that they are foregoing these, CAA duties. Because at this point, if they're declining it, the regional planning agency and the municipalities will have the option to become the CAA. And again, this is why we decided to do a step 1, step 2 process, because we also kind of needed to know this information so that we can make sure that we know that, the regional planning agency or municipalities may be coming in and basically taking on the CAA responsibility. So when or if a Board of Commissioners declines their CAA duties, they need to notify, again, municipalities, regional planning agency. And what they will do is send a survey, a different survey to them for them to complete, which is this survey, which looks pretty similar. It's basically asks the name of the planning agency or the municipalities, the contact person, county name, and again, if they're accepting or declining responsibilities. At this time, we are saying that if the board declines, we definitely need a response from the regional planning agency if they accept or decline. And if we don't hear from the municipalities, we'll assume that it's a decline, within that 180-day time frame. We also want to note that whoever submits this survey first is who will become the CAA. So if the Board of Commissioners declines, the survey goes to municipalities and the regional planning agency. Whichever of these entities submits the survey and chooses accept first, that is who is going to be the CAA for that county. So if they accept it, let me add some. Their survey will be similar again to what that original one looked like for the board. They need to accept that they understand all of the responsibilities of the CAA and that they know that they will need to do multi-county consultation, as well as develop an interlocal agreement if they are pursuing a multi-county plan. And then, upload any documentation as well as their electronic signature. So that, again, that's just basically how we know who's going to be the CAA. At this point, they still have whatever time is left within that 180 days after the director initiates the planning process to do their adjacent county consultation and then also develop an interlocal agreement if they're going to pursue that. So before the 180-day period is up, after they've done that multi-county consultation, the CAA will need to submit this step 2. This will also be on our webpage. And at this point, we'll have your contact information for whoever's going to be the CAA, and we'll be able to, contact the CAAs as well. This needs to be completed by every CAA meeting for every county, even though this asks which county or counties are going to be included in your plan. So even if you are pursuing a multi-county plan, each county within that multi-county, planning area will need to submit this, and you would check, your own county and those that are included in your multi-county plan, or just yours if you're doing it on your own. It'll ask if you want to give yourself a name to refer to if you're doing a multi-county plan. It wants to know who the entity is that's filling this out, who is a CAA, the authorized signer, and then we will need documentation of the entity that is agreeing to CAA responsibility. Just to make that official, we need that multi-county consultation documentation and then an interlocal agreement if applicable. And then it asks for an electronic signature. And again, we are allowing CAAs to specify who their DPA is ahead of time. So technically, after this notice of intent is submitted, there will be another 120 days to identify who your designated planning agency is. That essentially is your worker bee, the one who's going to do the day-to-day tasks, keep things moving, draft the MMP, just do the actual, day-to-day development. So we understand that, counties have 120 days after this is submitted to identify their DPA, so it's not necessary to include this. However, we also know that a lot of times there might already be someone in mind who's a designated planning agency and you want to really hit the ground running. You might already have them identified, so you can include that information within your submission as well. So those are the surveys. Let me get back to this. For how to submit your actual notice of intent. Again, we will be making sure to put these on our webpage. The information will be sent out in a letter. We will be contacting, the appropriate entities if needed to make sure that these are moved along in the way that they should be, and making sure that the correct entities are getting the correct surveys that they need. But these are what they will actually look like and what will actually be submitted. So we have another resource too that kind of explains, the whole initiation process. Christina mentioned this quick guide earlier. This is a pretty extensive, good resource we think is useful in a lot of aspects. It covers a lot of topics. It goes into detail on a lot of items. Specifically for this process though, it talks about the plan initiation on page 10. You can get to this from our webpage. Again, that's the Eagle, it's michigan.gov/EagleMMP, and you can access it from there. We also are working to provide several resources to help you kind of keep track of where you are. We have this Gantt chart that we have developed. This is also on our Eagle MMP webpage. What this is basically you insert, each month up here. The first month is, when this plan is initiated. And each month it shows you, how much of a time frame you have to complete certain tasks. And, if you are looking for another way to look at it, we also have an approval process tracker. This basically shows the same information, but in a different way. Basically, these green boxes are where you put dates in. So it lays out each step along the way, and it shows you basically what needs to be completed next and what date it needs to be completed. So as you fill out some of these boxes, it will automatically populate a deadline within these gray areas, which is nice to help keep track of where you are and what time you need to have different tasks done by. And this is also on our webpage. So getting a little bit more into detail, for if a plan or a county decides to pursue a multi-county plan, as you just saw, each county needs to file their own notice of intent. Each county is going to have their own CAA. However, after those CAAs are established, there will just be one DPA that is appointed on behalf of all the CAAs for the multi-county and one planning committee. So after those are appointed, there's 180 days to do both of those tasks. Then the MMP can begin to be drafted. And then as for the steps after filing the notice of intent, again, we will have the CAA established. Whether it's one CAA for a single county or there's multiple CAAs, they'll still just have one DPA identified, one planning committee. There does need to be a work program drafted for the DPA. That is another resource that we'll have available on our webpage. We have kind of a template or a format for what a DPA work program could look like. So the DPA will need to draft that. The planning committee will need to approve it. Eagle will need to approve it. And at that point, counties will be eligible for MMP grants. And again, we've kind of already gotten into these two entities, but the DPA, that is the primary resource. They're kind of the ones who draft the MMP, do the day-to-day work. The planning committee their members are specified within statute. They are generally 11 members. They can be more if you have a multi-county plan or there's a couple optional members that can be added as well. They direct the DPA. They have a couple approval rights, and they also identify the priorities. This is an example of the work program that we will have available, the template that can be utilized in creating that for the DPA that needs to be drafted, approved by the planning committee, and approved by us, and to be eligible for grant funding. So yeah, we will have this posted on our webpage as well. And
Okay,
then
so
at this point, go ahead, Christina.
Can you go back to
Sure.
I'll share my screen actually, and then
Okay, great.
I'll go back. I'll just do it that way. So I figured out how to, so everybody knows the system tells us that somebody's in the lobby. That's why we break up some. It's because somebody's coming in the lobby. We haven't let them in yet. But I figure I'm just letting everybody in. So hope they're on their best behavior. But anyways, so yeah, these items that Amy just identified, these are the first steps officially. So this is when you appoint your DPA and officially, and when you officially appoint your planning committee. I don't know if you can see me or not. I'll put my camera back on. So that's when these things actually happen. Okay, so you can do like she mentioned, you can identify your DPA prior to that, but officially you don't have to do it until after the notice of intent has been filed. But that's what these items are there. So with that, I wanted to touch base on the next items, and then actually I'm lying. I'm going to go right to the questions, and then I will talk through the rest of the slides, if that's okay. So I had started answering some of the questions in the chat, but I'm going to go through some of these items now, and then we'll talk about the remaining items of the point of the meeting. So the first question is it appropriate that a DPA is also an integral part of the planning committee? So just to make it real clear, the DPA has no voting rights. They are the person, like Amy had mentioned, are the worker bees of the planning process while it's being developed, and they are afterwards. They are the resource to be used. So they're integral in the part. They're scheduling the meetings. They're making sure it's noticed publicly. They're drafting the plan based on the direction from the planning committee. But they are the ones kind of administering all of those pieces. They aren't. They're not actually in the planning committee, if that makes sense. So hopefully that answers your question, Scott, you had. The next question I had is, does this go to the board chairperson or the secretary? And I did answer that. It will go to the board chairperson directly. So a letter will be directly sent to the Board of Commissioner chairperson. And then we will be sending an email to all of the current designated planning agency contacts that we have, our planning committee work group, so this work group that's established, as well as per the request and suggestion of some good folks out there, we're going to try to get the email list of the clerks at the counties, so we can also copy the letter to the clerk, because we know that Board of Commissioners have lots of hats. They may miss the email, so we're gonna blast it out as much as we can. There'll be a press release. Obviously, we'll also put it on our website. So hopefully everybody will know that the letter has went and the process has started. The next question, Patrick, you'd asked about the notice of intent for step one. You said, is there an option for county executives to accept? So the definition in law, the Board of Commissioners, or BOC, also includes or county executive. So technically speaking, wherever we use the phrase Board of Commissioner, it is for both of those. There's only a handful of counties that have an executive. So it'd be applicable for them to be the entity that would be filing that. The next question I had was, Board of Commissioners need to upload minutes that show approval of becoming the CAA, and the answer is yes. So all of these actions will need formal documentation indicating as such. If the county declines, we also will need the formal documentation indicating of the decline, that the counties are declining. The next question Dan asked is, will such communications go to the appointed DPAs? And I just mentioned that, yes, so we will be sending the documentation to everybody that we know so that they have an idea that it's happening. I had a question from Jamie asking about Iosco County's planning discussions with a different county that's jumping over a county for adjacent counties. So you have to reach out to your adjacent counties by law, and like I mentioned earlier, you can go around and do more than them. You do not have to work with, so you don't have to directly work with the counties that are adjacent to you. You could technically, everybody in that Oscoda example I gave you could do one plan together, and then Oscoda County by themselves, if that's what makes sense. So nothing in the law prohibits you from excluding a county from that, that are touching other counties. Hopefully that makes sense. I've answered that one already. Okay, so Tracy, you had mentioned in a multi-county plan, there will be multiple CAAs, and what happens in that form that Amy had identified is each county is going to be filing their notice of intent, and they're going to identify each other. So we'll be able to actually compare that, let's say Chippewa, Luce, and Mackinac are working together again, that each one of them would be filing separately, and Chippewas would identify the other two counties, and Luce would be identifying the other two counties, so that we'll be able to cross-reference that and make sure that the interlocal agreement is also included for each one of those. So somebody can't file on behalf of other counties. Hopefully that answers your question. Next question, Rachel says, how many days does Eagle have to approve the work program once they submit it? So fun fact, which isn't really exciting, is that 180-day time frame that's in the law is actually for all of those steps to happen at the same time. So, I mean, you have 180 days once you file your notice of intent to identify your DPA, to appoint your planning committee, to have the DPA draft the work program, for the work program to be approved by the planning committee, and for Eagle to approve the work program. So technically speaking, we have 180 days to do all of it. So that said, as long as everybody's working towards developing and getting it in a timely fashion, I don't know how stringent we'll be on that 180-day time frame for approvals, but please don't send us approved work programs on day 174 and say you have 6 days to approve it. But that's the fun fact with that one. There is no time frame. It's all of it's one time frame. Scott asked, is the DPA supposed to be one individual, or can it be a team? So the DPA is a specific entity. So it could be the Board of Public Works, for example, and then there'll be one point person identified. So it's say the Board of Public Works, Joe Smith is the person, is the contact. And so technically the DPA is the Board of Public Works, and the entity or the person we're contacting is Joe Smith. So it's really the entity and then one contact person. How it's structured on the back end, I don't care, but we will be contacting one person that's part of that entity, if that makes sense. Okay, so Lisa says, did I hear that if the BOC declines the CAA, that it goes to the municipalities or regional planning agencies? It was said that if the municipalities were not heard from, it is assumed that the RPA would be the CAA. So that's not, I don't know if you heard that incorrectly, or I said something wrong, maybe. The way it works, what Amy said is that there's no if the Board of Commissioners declines, as either the municipalities working jointly that the CAA, but whichever one of those files first, then they would become the CAA. And because the municipalities working jointly, we're not going to wait for them to decline. If the regional planning agencies decline, then we would probably send notice to the municipalities, but we don't need a decline from all the municipalities in a county. essentially we would at that point put municipalities on notice, and then we would end up preparing the plan. So hopefully that answers your question, Lisa. If not, please clarify in another message. The next question was, I wonder if the person asking, sorry, they were referring to, it looks like Jerry was responding back. If the DPA is the regional planning agency, will they have a vote on the planning committee? So I had this discussion, I think at the regional, Michigan Association of Regions meeting. So essentially, it would make more sense for the planning committee representative from the regional area would be probably, it would be the county executive, or not county, the, what's it called? Executive director of the region, or the director of the region would probably be that person. If you're going to have two people, if the regional people are going to be designated as a DPA, then to have the higher level person be on the committee, and then somebody, a staffer from the regional planning agency, be the one that does the DPA work. So but again, we're not going to micromanage that. So you can't be the DPA. The same person should not be the DPA and on the committee as a representative for the region. So we would prefer to be two separate people for that. The next question was, if you start a multi-county plan and determine down the road that it's not for your county, can you revert to just a single county plan? So the answer is probably yes. Do we have a process and protocol for how that would work? We don't. We would have to worry about that when the time came. I actually think it's more likely to be going the other way, where single counties have realized in the process that, I might as well be working with this other county here, and they're going to want to end up working together going forward. I think, either scenario will have to work through the process, so we don't have that, in stone, at this point. But there should be a way to do either way. It's just how the grant dollars come out and how the interlocal agreement needs to be revised, or those type of things we'll have to work through later. Okay, so Patrick, you mentioned again about the Board of Commissioner chair. So we can probably change the survey to say or county executive, if that would make most sense. So we can talk, we'll bring that back and talk about it as a team. The next question was, Becky asked, is a resolution confirming acceptance or decline still required, or just meeting minutes? I would recommend a resolution, so you clearly know it's a yes or no for the county. They need to be official voting. You have to have it. You could have a vote. I guess you have to have an official action to know one way or the other. So I guess if you did a meeting notes with official vote to say we're going to vote for acceptance or declining, and you have the yays, nays, and your meeting minutes are signed, that would probably be sufficient. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a resolution, but it has to be an official action that you can clearly see that that a vote has gone up or down, and that you're taking on those responsibilities or foregoing those responsibilities. Next question is, can a county board commissioner accept the responsibilities of becoming the CA at the same meeting that they appoint the members of the committee? So no, it happens before then. So the committee should not be officially appointed until after the notice of intent has been filed. The committee, you can start getting your ducks in a row. You could start, putting people on, getting the selection pool together. I know some counties are doing where people have to apply for positions with resumes, and then they're looking through the pool of candidates to fill each of the positions. You could start that process right now, but you won't be doing that until after the actual the notice of intent is filed. And that's what triggers the CAA. That's when you become the actual CAA, and then that entity is the one who has to appoint the planning committee. So it can't be done at the same meeting. I would assume it would have to be done at a later date. Hold on one second. Sorry about that, my little guard dog. And then the last question I see is the planning committee also responsible for guiding the implementation of the plan after it's adopted? So technically speaking, yes. So the planning committee, which we did not get into the details of this today, but the planning committee is a standing committee. It's 11 plus members. It has staggered appointments after the first 5 years, after the first round of plans is completed and reviewed for the next round. So they're really helping to make sure that the goals are being met, and that that if they need to make adjustments to their goals and development of facilities and those type of things, that they are actively engaged with the plan. So it's not going to be like it was today. Historically, we've had a lot of counties that have no committee, no salaries management planning committee, and they are only counties that had mechanisms in their plan or attached to their plan, like agreements with facilities, had committees together. So going forward, these will be standing committees that will be required to really make sure that things are being accomplished, as they were the ones who set the vision and the priorities of the county and in the planning area, and they are making sure that those things are being accomplished. But then that said, it is the ultimate responsibility of the CAA to make sure that the plan's being implemented, that there's capacity being developed where they need to, that programs are being completed, that reports are being done. So those type of things. It looks like I came to the end of the questions. I'm going to turn back to the remaining parts of the presentation today. So lots of great questions. I think, you know, we are working through things. We're trying to bring stuff, develop things. We have a subgroup of people, of groups of counties, a region, and associations that are part of a subgroup that it's really been helping to develop these guidance materials and develop the plan format and help us, you know, determine like what type of outreach is needed and work through those things. So we are actively trying to keep, you know, providing resources available to folks. So as always, if you have questions, feel free to always reach out to us. So that said, moving to the latter part of our meeting today to wrap things up. Next time in our last meeting date on our calendars for this year is November 15th, and in Michigan, apparently that's open season. So I don't know if you'll be here or not. But anyways, we do anticipate having this meeting, and we have a tentative topic area. Literally, I think we're just going to have it open up for questions. It may last, 10 minutes. It may last an hour. I have no idea, but I think that until we have the actual call for the plan initiation from the director, I don't want to just be always trying to explain things until we have, you guys know exactly what you have to do. And I do feel like having an open Q&A session where we'll record it. It'll be open. You'll raise your hand and we can, unmute you and you can join the topic. I think that's what we need to do. And we do anticipate after the first of the year to reestablish a semi, whether it's monthly or every other month, I'm not really sure of that yet, but where we'll do a standing meeting time that we'll send out to a group, work group, and open it to the public so that we can carry on our outreach and help counties in the various topics. And we do anticipate, a full-blown comms plan where we'll have webinars and tutorials as well. So look for an email in the coming weeks to the group, MMP group members, letting me know what type of meeting frequency you want. And then open to the public right now. Whoever, if you are interested in participating in the work group, please email our team. It's eagle-mmp for materials management planning at michigan.gov, and let us know if you want to participate and who you represent, and we could probably get you on that meeting notice. That said, we do have another few upcoming events that I wanted to walk through and let folks know. I mentioned this earlier that we do have a Northern Lower MRC regional meeting coming up tomorrow, the UP one up in Escanaba on Friday, and then we also have an East Michigan recycling meeting down in Detroit area. And all of those are free to join. You can click right on our website and to join those meetings. And they are virtual as well. So you do not have to physically attend if you can't do that. I highly suggest you join one of those meetings. And if not, please go watch one of the recordings. Also, there is our recycling team is doing a Catalyst community webinar coming up November 14th, and they're doing tools and resources to help navigate materials management. Remember, it's not just the plan. It's all of these materials management activities as we're growing our infrastructures and capacities and our education and all this stuff to help reach our goals. So they won't just be talking about planning, but what they do will help counties develop a good materials management program, which will be existent in their plan. So also next week, which is coming right up on Monday, there is a next cycle showcase on Monday that I believe that they still are open, that you can still join that. And then there's also on the 20th a circular economy matchmaking in Gaylord as well at the Treetops. Both of them are there. And then I think Thursday, November 9th, MRC has their fall into recycling. And this is to talk about EPR. Karen, are you on? We could unmute your mic. Potentially, do you want to talk about that? Or I don't know if you've already been on that, but let me add you. I think I'll have Karen talk about this. I didn't realize it was coming up so fast.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for the opportunity, Christina. Extended producer responsibility is something that's happening in Europe and in Canada, and it is a way to make producers responsible for the life cycle of their products by including the cost of end-of-life management into the cost of the products and the packaging. And so we're exploring the opportunities of EPR in Michigan now, because as communities through this county planning process wake up to the fact that community-based services are the best way to provide these services across the board, the cost and the challenge of actually getting there is quite large. And through EPR, we may be able to reduce and even eliminate this burden on local governments. And so it will be important for local governments to really understand what the opportunities are for EPR. So I'd like to invite you all to attend our event. There's a cost to attend. We provide lunch, but we've got a really unique kind of setup close to the capital to talk about what the opportunities are for actually moving legislation to help us deal with all of these materials at the end of their life in the most productive. Something in your email box, and if you haven't found it, reach out to us and we'll provide info, or website or a phone call. Thanks.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I knew I was going to mess it up if I said it. I know enough to be dangerous, right? But things are important, and it's going to take the entire village of Michigan to really move these our materials management forward, and better than we've ever been, so it's these type of things will help counties like Karen was mentioning, and I really feel like it's important to have somebody at these events to understand what's out there for them. Oh, and then looks the link in the chat. Also, the slide will have the ability, you can click right in the slide as well. I couldn't get that little QR code to work. It's probably user error, honestly, but I couldn't get it to work, so I thought I'll just put it on there. Again, we have our work group meeting scheduled, where to find more information. We will have the one on November 15th. You can always reach our planning webpage. We are actively trying to update that as much as we can with the tools and resources we think that you'll need to be the most productive and efficient that you can be. We have our Q&A online that we have recently updated with some questions specifically about the CAA and what happens after initiation. So I'd highly recommend you check that out. Understanding it's a preliminary draft document, so it's always subject to change, but we really do feel like the answers are, will be helpful in understanding the process. We're constantly updating guidance materials, information sheets, like I mentioned. We also have a subscription, a Gov Delivery listserv that you can join. I say this at every one of my meetings and presentations. Please join them. These are the two specifically for planning related, but there's a whole bunch of great topics that you can subscribe to. And every time somebody sends a message, you will get notified of that through that system. And you might get a couple of the same messages because you're in a couple listers, but anyways, I think it's important to get on as many that you need to do the best job you can and have a better understanding. And as always, you can always email our main email box, which is eagle-mmp@michigan.gov, which I mentioned. Oh, thank you, Lisa. She just posted in the chat the link to the next cycle showcase that's this next week, which I can't believe it's already MissCon and next cycle. So we have our team of people. You heard from two of us today, Amy and I, and we also have Carly Money, who's in the background, and she is the one primarily responsible for the Northern Lower and the UP counties. So with that said, are there any other dying questions that we might have that you want me to address? That means we did a really good job. I know it's kind of difficult to know, to kind of see it all. You're just trying to probably grasp what's happening, and know that our team is here. If we have things that just don't make sense, we can make changes. It's not like everything's set in stone just because we have it created. So just like, Patrick mentioning about the executive, kind of executive person, like if we need to make a change to something, we can do that as well. But as always, we're available for questions. We are, please check back regularly to our website, see about education and outreach, see if there are things that make sense for you to participate with. And maybe since I do have you, and I'm going to bring this over. This is our actual web page. Again, this is Michigan.gov/EagleMMP. And this is what our webpage looks like. And we have this engagement and training section. You just click on it. And as you can see, this is where you can access the recycling meetings. The meeting for today, for our November meeting, will be up here when it's available. This is a recording of the Catalyst community presentation that I gave on the 5th of October. And this is that one that I mentioned for tools, the tools and resources given by our recycling team. And we, on the left-hand side, all of these, we have our program map, our recycling specialist program map. Our current DPAs are listed here. These may be outdated, but take a look on that on our webpage. And then as other things become available, they'll be here. But this is right now, this is where our planning official documents are for our materials management plan. Because remember, the facilities management plan stays in effect until you have these. So we'll have a section for solid waste management plans, which is at the bottom of the page on the previous page. But this is where the information is. This is the Q&A document I mentioned that was just revised with the other stuff. And here are those charts and tools that Amy had identified in her presentation. And we also, last meeting in September, we walked through all of the tools step by step of how to use these ones here. So definitely take a look at that as well. And this is the quick guide right here under information and guidance, and some other info sheets and toolkits of information. So I highly recommend you take a look at all those things. And I appreciate your time as always, and we're always available. So thank you guys, I appreciate it. And you have a great rest of your October. Thank you.